Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Core Studio. Welcome to the show. So on today's episode, I'm going to be trying something different today, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments what your thoughts are on it and how it went. It's an experiment. Here we go. But I'm going to be talking about how to build the perfect commander deck for you. No matter what your budget is, I believe that everyone can build out the perfect commander deck for them. And I'm about to teach you some ways, at least the ways that I go about building my decks that I've found very helpful. And I've built quite a few decks through my career, so I've learned a thing or two at least for myself. So with all that said, let's jump into it. So to start things off, obviously, when it comes to building a commander deck, well, you might come up with, a concept for the deck and like what you want the deck to do, or you might just see a commander that interests you. And for this episode, I wanted to pick a commander that I actually haven't personally built around, though I have seen it and talked about cards that work well with it. Let's talk about Tivit, Seller of Secrets. So I'm going to build around Tivit for this episode. A 6/6 Sphinx Rogue with Flying and Ward 3 that costs 3 white, blue, black. Council's Dilemma, whenever it enters the battlefield or deals combat damage to a player. Starting with you, each player votes for evidence or bribery. For each evidence, vote investigate. For each bribery, vote create a treasure token. On top of that, while voting, you may vote an additional time. So this is a commander that has a lot of potential. It is a commander that, yes, is decently expensive at 6 mana, but you get value out of it right away again with that ETB. Or again, with that combat damage trigger on a player. And with flying, it typically can get through an opponent. It also has Ward 3, so it can protect itself. It's a pretty solid commander. Now, we can talk about ways to actually evaluate this commander. You might just see this commander and say, okay, I think I want to build around that one. Now, what kinds of ways are we going to build around it? So to do that, let's just kind of talk about how to break down a commander. First up, again, it has 2 different triggers, right? I mean, it's the same trigger, but 2 different ways. ETBs are very easily usable and abusable in a couple of different colors. And in my opinion, the easiest colors to abuse them in are typically white and blue when it comes to blink effects. Also, black's got some ways as well with those kind of feign death, bring back type effects as well. But we might not want to go in that direction. Maybe some cards just in case. But yeah, blink spells are abundant in those colors. So we've got plenty of ways to use and abuse that. Also, the other way is, again, to get it through in combat. It typically is able to with flying, at least on one opponent. When it does that, again, we get that trigger as well. And of course, a way to use and abuse that combat damage trigger is with double strike, being able to hit twice, essentially. So there's another way, another avenue to get extra value. Because again, when we are going to be doing this now, typically, again, let's assume we've got all 3 of our opponents. What the result is going to be is usually we will be picking to make 2 treasure tokens. Our opponents will probably give us the clue tokens. Now, of course, we've got ways to take advantage of both. And maybe in certain situations, they might be picking the other or we might be picking the other. Regardless, we're going to be getting like 5 artifact tokens every single time this happens, which is an absurd amount. And of course, there's ways to make that even better. There are other ways to get additional votes. Talk about some of those cards as well. And again, as I am a budget player, there's certain cards that I wish I'd have access to, like, maybe Irenicus's Vile Duplication, make a, legendary copy of this, then maybe populate that, or non-legendary copy, I should say. That isn't within my budget, but it might be within yours and something to consider. But again, just kind of breaking down what this commander does, how we want to go about, getting value out of it, how we want to go about winning with it, and the kind of winning strategy might be, okay, I want to get a lot of artifact tokens in play. I can win by punishing opponents with certain ways that, maybe I drain opponents whenever I sacrifice an artifact or something like that. Or, ways to drain opponents when you create a token or sacrifice a token. There's a certain card that does that as well. Or ways to maybe turn those artifact tokens into creatures and then actually attack my opponents with them. That's another avenue. Also, this commander does, have 6 power and is a flyer. Maybe one avenue could be, combat damage. That isn't the direction I'm probably going to take it. But yeah, there's a lot of different avenues that you can actually take to win with a commander like this. Maybe even just drawing cards again with all those clues. There's ways to take advantage of that. Like I said, Coast Crawler, the more that you play commander, the more you'll see different kinds of cards and play different kinds of decks and be able to see kind of, okay, what avenues to victory do I have? So again, when evaluating the commander, evaluating what access to, different kinds of cards you have. Again, whether that's budget or whether that's the, actual colors that your commander is, the color identity. Again, we've got access to 3 great colors that work really well with this commander because, again, we want to use and abuse that ETB. We can use and abuse that combat damage trigger. And then when we do, build up that board state, when we get all that value, how do we actually win with this? So those are the kinds of things that you like to determine when initially seeing the commander. Now let's jump through, and actually, again, I haven't actually built this deck yet or ever before. So let's just jump through and kind of talk about, I'm going to talk through while I do it, kind of the different aspects of building this deck and what kind of cards that I'm going to be considering. So now let's move over to a fantastic website. If you've never used Scryfall before, make sure you check it out. It is an incredible resource. Just an amazing search engine for Magic cards. You can get incredibly specific with it. There is an advanced search in here. I do use it sometimes, but I typically have learned, thanks to Eddie, a lot of just the kind of, different things you need to type in. The programming, not programming language, but the actual just kind of search keywords, that kind of stuff, and what you can really find with that. And that tends to help a lot. As I am a budget player, I like to indicate, okay, USD minus 51 cents, because I like to, right now I'm building a lot of decks that are 50 cents or less with a lot of cards, essentially. Every single card in the deck outside of the commander is 50 cents or less. And then also ID Esper. That is going to make sure I'm only getting cards that can actually fit with a commander that has that color identity. So there you go. So we're going to start things off and just do that kind of a search just to see what initially we have. We're getting a bunch of lands, other things as well. And it's automatically sorted by EDH rank on this as well. But now I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to start off with my ramp package. Let's just start off with ramp. Typically in Commander, you're going to want at least, depending on the commander, depending on the deck, 10 sources of ramp. And I know that like Mirrored Landscape actually popped up on here already. Mirrored Landscape is a great one, and yes, I'm going to include that in my land base, but I actually don't really consider any kind of like lands that actually ramp you to be ramped, because they're not nearly as efficient as they usually would be. I mean, if you've got like an Ancient Tomb or whatever, sure, I guess, but not on this budget. Anyways, so I'm just going to type in, just as an example to make this a little simpler, Oracle Tag, mana, ramp. So Oracle Tag Mana Ramp is going to show me, again, ramp, essentially. So Oracle Tag is a great kind of like little indicator to say, okay, I can just type in next to it, wrath, maybe removal. There's a lot of different keywords you can type in. Just kind of play around with it on Scryfall to kind of see what your options are. And again, you can change this so you don't have any budget requirement. You can change it so you do have a different budget requirement, whatever you want. And you don't have to search for this. You could just search for, artifact, costing 2, tapping, that kind of stuff as well. You don't have to use Oracle Tag. It's just a nice kind of easy, quick setup to find things out, and most of them are tagged properly. Now with this as well, again, I'm not going to be considering land, so I'm just going to do -T land. So it's not showing me any lands then. And again, kind of just learning like these little tips and tricks can be really helpful and help you work through these things really quickly. So we can see, okay, these are the artifacts. These are the mana ramp pieces that I have access to in these colors in ways that I can ramp, essentially. And then with this, I'm actually just going to go over here, start a new quick list, so I can just start adding these to it quickly. Now, I'm probably not going to show, like, just putting all these in the list and then also taking them over and putting them onto Moxfield or whatever, site you might use when it comes to building decks. I'm just going to kind of show you my thought process going through these cards. But basically, yeah, okay, so I've got some excellent ones. And just because they're ranked in EDH rank order does not mean that, you should just need to take the top 10, right? I personally like really efficient mana rocks, and that typically means that they cost 2 and tap for 1. Arcane Signet's a great one, so I'll add that, and actually just a little key. I don't know if this is for every keyboard, but I think it would be. Just tap A essentially while hovering over it, and you get to add it to that list that you just created. So there you go. So Arcane Signet's a great one. Felwerstone's a great one. Mind Stone's a great one. Commander Sphere, many players out there like it, and when it comes to being EDH rec rank, it is really high up because it's in, like, I don't know if every single precon, but it's in a lot of the precons, if not all of them, essentially. So that inflates its numbers a little bit. I am not a fan of Commander Sphere. Like, for certain decks, yes, but not for this deck. It's not as efficient. Again, it doesn't, cost 2 and tap for 1. It costs 3 taps for 1. Yeah, you can sacrifice, draw a card, so can Mind Stone, Opinion's better. Anyways, Wayfarer's Bauble, of course I'm keeping that. Again, land ramp, only, this is like the only land ramp essentially you can have in non-green decks. It's an incredible one. Again, basically a turn 2 ramp growth you have in your opening hand. Numeris Signet, Orzhov Signet. Let's see, Azorius Signet. So we're already at, I think, 7, essentially. You can obviously go check, too. It also shows other kind of different kinds of ramp as well. Like, a Sun Titan technically is ramp. So if you've got ways to get lands in your graveyard consistently, sure, that can ramp you as well. It's kind of slow to do that, obviously, at 6 mana. Burnished Heart, another actually to land ramp, but it's a bit slow as well. Everflowing Chalice, a very flexible mana rock. It's a fantastic one because it is one that we can cast early, again, for just 2 mana, tap for a colorless, or we can cast later on. And again, we have got a commander that's a decent, cost at 6. I said it's on the higher end for commanders. So personally, I'm thinking right now I want to add a bit more than just 10 ramp to our deck. So we also have, it also shows also other things like a Foundry Inspector on this as well. Like, it's going to cost, artifact spells cost bonus to cast. So this is an artifact-based strategy. Obviously, reduction can really help us out as well. It's not really an artifact-based strategy for this one. Charcoal Diamond, Sky Diamond. I think we're at 10 right now. And again, you keep looking through. You don't need to just take the top ones. I'm going to try to make this quicker, so I'm going to make some decisions I might not always make, but I'm going to go through this a little quicker than I just typically do. Typically, I don't build decks, and I don't know how long this episode's going to take. I hope less than an hour, but yeah, typically when it comes to building decks, those can take hours, those can take days, they can take weeks. It really depends on the deck, and obviously there's going to be iterations after you even build it and play it and make different decisions. I'm also going to include, I mean, I love Worn Power Stones, finally budget again, so I think I'm at 11 right now. I do probably want another pretty efficient mana rock if I can find one, although Midnight Clock might be a good one as well, because that's a little bit of flexibility to it as well. It ramps you, and it also can help you in a desperate situation where you need cards in your hand. So you know what, I'm just actually going to go with Midnight Clock as well, so that's what we're going to do right there. So I'm at 12 mana rocks. I might go back and change that at this point, but I believe 12 should be a good amount for this commander. Again, the commander costs 6, ramping a good amount to start things off, and then after you get the commander going, you should have a good amount of access to mana again with those treasures that you are making. But now let's move on to another aspect that I want to cover. And again, we talked about what's effective with this commander. Hey, yeah, entering the battlefield. And there's plenty of ways, like I talked about, to actually make it so that we can have this commander enter the battlefield a lot. Now, one way you can go about that, essentially, again, is with maybe blink spells. So you could just do Oracle Tag Blink, which should pop up with some blink spells. So, again, ways to essentially say, hey, creature enters the battlefield, or, leaves battlefield, enters battlefield. There's delayed blink effects. There's one that's like enter the end step, that kind of stuff as well. Kind of with this, again, there are certain things you can find, like if you do an Oracle Tag, they're not always perfect. They're not always tagged exactly not properly, but some players might call it this or that. They might not tag it as a blink effect. And I'll give you an example here in a little bit. So what I'm actually going to do here instead is, I believe FO is full Oracle. Thank you, Eddie, for teaching me that. I'm going to type in exile. I'm going to type in return. I'm going to type in battlefield. Basically, all blink spells are essentially kind of one way to do that. Actually, I might not type in battlefield. I might take battlefield off after a certain point, because battlefield also can apply in a different way to a different kind of card that I'm thinking about here in a little bit. Regardless, let's just start with this. It shows you, okay, look, within your requirements, there's still 224 cards that are probably around what you're looking for. Obviously, there's certain things that might not work in the way that you want them to. Again, let's go back really quick and actually just type in that Oracle Tag real quick too as well to see how many there were. I'm sorry I didn't look at that right there. Blink, let's see. So 78. So let's just go through these first, and we'll go through the kind of other way, which kind of is more expanded, to see what we might be missing. But yeah, let's create a new quick list, and we're going to go going through our blink effects on this. So Ghostly Flicker, a very solid one that basically, I mean, is going to help you use and abuse ETBs, potentially multiple creatures. There might be another creature that we might want to actually use and abuse its ETB of. We can, find another way to do that. Ghostly Flicker, at the very least, is basically a 2-mana blink spell, because, hey, you can just target a land and basically blink it. So there you go. So Ghostly Flicker is a very good one. Cloud Shift, a single mana to essentially blink it. We also have some other creatures that can help us out as well, potentially Restoration Angel, Feldar Guardian. Those might be some examples that we want to take advantage of as well. And yeah, again, if we have kind of an overall blink strategy with a good amount of creatures that can maybe give us some extra benefits when they enter the battlefield, maybe like a Mold Drifter type, then we can definitely find more ways to take advantage of them as well too. So maybe I do like Restoration Angel, and I do like Feldar Guardian, so let's just add those right away, okay? Flicker Wisp is an interesting one as well. This one is one where it comes back at the end step, so we can't just like use and abuse it right away. Sometimes it's better to get a creature back at the end step again to avoid a board wipe, but since Flicker Wisp obviously doesn't have like flash, then hey, you can't really avoid board wipes unless it's your own board wipe. That being said, Semester's End can be a great one to blink multiple creatures, and it can be a way to essentially save their entire team from a board wipe. Displace, another way to take advantage of multiple creatures. Momentary Blink is a repeatable one. I mean, not repeatable, but you can flash it back to get that again. Various Time Twists can blink anything, essentially, which is lovely. Yorion Sky Nomad, that's another one. This one can actually blink all creatures. So again, if we do have creatures that have ETBs, we can take advantage of essentially all of them. Let's do that. Let's just go with the assumption that we're going to be blinking multiple creatures, okay? That we are going to have other creatures in this deck that we can take advantage of, so we can be a bit more flexible than just being incredibly dependent on our commander, though our commander is going to be our engine. Flicker of Fate is a good one as well, creature or enchantment. Lae'zel's Acrobatics, a really good one as well. Basically blinking any number of creatures, bringing them back, and if we actually get lucky, again at 10 through 20, which actually is a higher percentage, right? Essentially 1 through 9, 10 through 20 be a higher percentage technically, right? So you'd be able to actually get all your creatures blink twice. Planar Incision, another good one as well. Again, we're looking for basically 2 mana or less, essentially, when it comes to blink effects. At least I am, unless they're blinking multiple creatures. Touch Spirit Realm, this one's a great one as well. A very flexible card you can use as an enchantment to take something out, so it can be removal. And again, kind of having these cards that can like be in different aspects of the deck, again, be in different sections of the deck. Like again, this is a blink effect because we can channel it away, discard it to basically blink a creature or an artifact, or we can actually just utilize it to get rid of something until this leaves the battlefield. So again, it fills a removal spell role, it also fills a blink role, and kind of with these blink spells as well, they do actually involve protection too. So again, that can be good protection from essentially target removal, which again, our commander already has protection with that ward, but if an opponent actually decides to target our commander, we can just blink it away to just negate that target removal. And if there's a Wrath, again, we've got ones like this that can be like a delayed blink effect as well. Blur is a decent one. That one does let you blink one creature, lets you draw a card. It does, I mean, cost more than you typically want it to cost. I mean, Misspell Witch is a good repeatable one that's just on a creature, which is nice. We've got Far Traveler. Commander creatures you own have at the beginning of your end step, exile to one target, tap creature control, turn the battlefield on its control. If we attack with our commander and get through, this is basically a free blink effect for us. So that's absolutely lovely. Siren's Ruse, doesn't matter that our commander is not a pirate. Don't really care about that. What we care about is, hey, it's a 2-mana blink spell. And again, I'm going to be cutting these down. I might not probably do it on the video because it'll take forever, but I will be cutting these down essentially. I'm not going to include every single card out of all these, but yeah, there's a lot of really good ones out there. We also have Otherworldly Journey, Jeskar's Portal, Long Road Home. Again, the thing is essentially, while we're using these, we are just going to get our value out of them back. I mean, value out of them back. We're going to get the amount of mana that we spent out of them back, essentially, because we're probably going to choose, again, treasure for our own 2 votes. Our opponents probably won't do that for us, but still, you basically get your mana right back and then just make a bunch of other, clues, essentially, or store up those treasures when you need. So yeah, basically 2 is kind of our limit to what we really want to spend on most of our blink effects. Turn to Miss is a good one as well. Slip on the ring tempting us, but it doesn't matter all that much, I don't believe. Gale Powder Mage, this is a great repeatable one, essentially. Whenever it attacks, exile on target creature and then return to the battlefield. So it's a repeatable one, which is very nice. And we might kind of be around, I mean, again, Haldor Spell is like, oh yeah, good one. Oh wait, no, that one's actually not a legendary creature, so it's not our commander. Guardian Gearport is another one as well. So again, at some point, I am probably just going to stop because I'm going to try and make this episode be, 100 hours. But yeah, you obviously have even more that you can go through and actually find all those blink effects that you might like. Again, I might just kind of go back really quick and just type in exile, return. Actually, you know what? I'm looking for a specific one. So sometimes, you might not find, again, if you're doing specific Oracle tags like this. And again, that's kind of where the more you play, the more you see different cards, you can actually kind of just figure out, okay, actually this card, which is not technically a blink spell, which is kind of like a blink spell, can actually work pretty well in that. Cast, let's see, without, maybe? Let's see if I can find it with actually searching this way. No. Okay, so I finally found it in this section. One of the problems with trying to record on the fly like this is that, yeah, I probably should have just actually made the price change because unfortunately, at least the Wind is starting to see more play apparently, and now is 63 cents. So it is a pretty cool card. Would work well with this commander, but I'm gonna have to hold off on that one. So yeah, when it comes to blink spells, again, just keep in mind, or just any kind of spells, yeah, the Oracle tags are great and can be a great start for you. But if you're like, okay, I'm actually thinking of a different one that they're missing that is kind of like a blink effect, but it's not, make sure you're kind of finding it in different avenues. So just keep that in mind. Okay, moving on. So the other way I talked about actually gaining some value from this commander other than blinking, which is fantastic because again, very easy for us to do, it's repeatable, and it is a way to essentially protect our commander at the same time in a way and maybe take advantage of other creatures that might have some ETBs as well. Let's talk now about the other side of that, which again was giving the commander double strike because again, giving double strike doubles up when we hit an opponent. And actually, I probably should type in strike 2 right there because there are other things that can double as well. So there you go, double strike. There we go. So double strike is a way that we can benefit our commander too. Now, I will say with this, again, since we are going to be blinking pretty heavily, yeah, I don't really want like a Fire Shrieker where I have to keep like paying 2 mana to get it reattached to my commander to redo that. I mean, I guess that does kind of pay for itself in a way by getting those extra treasures, so there's that too. But there might just be other better cards essentially to utilize. Again, like a Duelist Heritage. This one's pretty incredible. Let's start a new quick list. And then Duelist Heritage, absolutely incredible card. One that, again, basically can be a very good political card. And again, one that you can just freely give your commander double strike when you are swinging. Again, other ones, yeah, Ardric can give double strike. We have to have something else that has double strike. Flaming Fist, commander creatures that you own have when this creature attacks against double strike until end of turn. Yep, that's again just a free way to give our commander double strike. Those are probably the 2 that I'm going to focus on. I'm not going to focus too heavily on combat because again, there are going to be times where you're like, maybe having to save your commander from something and blinking your commander before combat, or just certain circumstances that might happen. But if you don't blink your commander pre-combat main phase and it doesn't have summoning sickness, then obviously you can actually, get these double strike in, by actually attacking it through. If I can actually talk properly, by getting through into your opponent. So not really seeing too many other ones that I really care too much about setting up double strike. Other ones are decent, but still, when it comes to just ease of use, I think Duelist Heritage and Flaming Fist are going to be fantastic ones to give the commander double strike. Again, I'm going to focus more so with this stack on, blinking the commander, blinking other things as well, and taking advantage of those. So again, these two effects I think are really good to utilize in a double strike aspect. Okay, moving on. So with this commander, again, this commander deals with voting, and this is probably something I should have brought up earlier, but yeah, I mean, if you want to actually, you could have just been like, you could have taken a completely different direction. It could have just been, instead of taking advantage of your commander's maybe value, is having a lot of different voting effects. That's not the way I'm going to be taking it. But the way that I want to use voting, though, is maybe having some ways that can actually interact with voting. So with this, I'm literally just going to say, okay, for full Oracle text, vote. So I'm going to get all the cards that are underneath 50 cents, essentially, or 50 cents or under, in Esper that deal voting. Again, there are going to be ones like Play for Power that allow, voting, additional voting, essentially, which is nice. And I don't really care too much about those, though, essentially. Again, what I care about are the ones that actually benefit my commander with affecting voting. So, for example, like Ballot Broker. All right, this is a 3-mana card that essentially is kind of like an additional part of our commander's text. Again, while voting, may vote additional time. So now, our commander, again, already gives us an additional vote. Now, with this in play, we get 3 votes. So our opponents, again, get 3 votes, we get 3 votes. And if we blink our commander with a 2-mana blink spell, we can net mana on that. We can essentially guarantee that, again, we're going to get 3 treasures because we choose 3 treasures. And getting, well, again, with that, 6 total artifact tokens in play is pretty crazy. Brago's Representative is another one. Again, while voting, get initial vote. Cool. Are there any other ones out there like this? I don't think so. Each opponent vote choice that you didn't loses 2 life. That could be an interesting way, again, because we are going to be voting quite a bit. So yeah, Grudge Keeper could be kind of a finisher for us. So let's not forget that one. We're just going to add that in there. Whenever you players finish voting in, each opponent who voted for you choice voted for mana, scry 2. I mean, we don't really care about our opponent. I mean, I guess we could see how that plays out, right? Adding that in, I think, vote for choice you vote for, may scry 2. Scrying 2, again, is a decent amount of card selection. Is that worth kind of like forcing them to give us treasures? Maybe that might be one just to consider, and maybe one to put on the chopping block, maybe to like try it out, just see how kind of works with your play group. Because again, you might not want to give your opponents all that much card selection. So again, there are different cards that kind of work with voting. There aren't really other ones that I'm seeing, at least, that are like, hey, like you punish your opponents when you vote in a different way, or you get extra votes. Again, there's other cards that are like, hey, yeah, cool, this card makes a vote happen. That's not really what we're focusing on with this deck. So again, I think Ballot Broker and Brago's Representative actually can be key pieces of this deck, and you can have some really crazy plays. So let's kind of actually dig into those two and kind of see what we can do. So with that, again, having those 2 cards that can, again, say, hey, you get extra votes. Now, again, if we had a Renicus' Vile Duplication, that'd be nice. So we could copy our commander and get all those effects, including that additional one. We don't have that. What we do have, though, again, are these 2 creatures, which we've got ways to get them. We'll talk about those, hopefully, if I remember here in a little bit. But yeah, we've got ways to essentially use and abuse these effects to get an absurd amount of votes. Again, every single time we blink our commander with one of those extra, get additional votes in play, we get extra votes, which means we get extra, probably, treasures, right? And again, by getting more and more of those in play, every single time we abuse our commander's ETB or combat damage trigger, we get even more value. So again, let's just say with this, you know what? We're just going to go Oracle Tag. And we're going to go with, if I could type properly while trying to do this, Oracle Tag Clone. So by using clones, that is a very easy way to say, okay, if I get those creatures into play, I can actually get additional copies of them, and then all of a sudden, I am going to be able to get more and more and more votes. Again, every single additional clone that we get into play then is just an extra vote for us, and all of a sudden, if we've got like 5, 6 votes in play, our blink effects are going to be absurd. Be able to just do some crazy things. You could probably even, you could go infinite, I guess, with like Miss Meadow Witch, right? Because you could essentially, again, if you have 5 votes and you blink your commander with Miss Meadow Witch, which I believe, again, is 2 white-blue. Correct me in the comments below if I'm wrong on that. Repeatable effect that you can blink your commander. You can do it again and again and again. You just keep doing that infinite number of times, and you get infinite mana, and you can draw your entire deck, and you can easily win from there, obviously. that might not be the direction that you want to go if you don't want to actually just win infinitely. This isn't, attempting to win infinitely. It just might happen essentially if you get that combination. But also keep in mind with clones, again, like let's just add clone to our new list. With clones, hey, this is also not only just a copy another creature that has a good ETB, or again, copy a creature that has a vote, essentially, right? Additional vote. This is a way that we can actually copy our commander. Yeah, with the legend roll, we're going to lose that clone, but we still get that ETB. So again, in desperate times, we could be like, okay, I really need some of those tokens in play. Let's play this clone. Let's copy our commander. Sure, it goes away, but that's fine. Vizier Many Face, another great one. You basically clone twice. Mirror Image. Yeah, again, you're going to be cloning most of your own things. So this is a cheaper clone for you. You can only target your own, but that's fine. Undercover Operative. Great. Body Double. Yeah, this might come in handy because, again, if one of those additional voting cards is dealt with and it's in our graveyard, we can basically make Body Double a copy of that too. Or to say copy another clone in our library or our graveyard, or a copy of one of those creatures that has an ETB that can blink our commander again. So keep that in mind. Evil Twin is an interesting one because that can also be removal too. So let's throw that one in. The Super Shapeshifter can change around. That one might be interesting, but I personally prefer, if we can, to keep our clones. I guess I made Body Double in there, which is 5 mana, but I prefer the clones typically to be 4 mana or less. We also have Machines God's Effigy. That's kind of like a clone that is just like a mana rock as well. So again, you might want to kind of just see where you're at with mana rocks after all this. Again, we talked about that one that deals with voting as well, and then maybe cut down on some more mana rocks. Essentially, again, I might not take you through the cuts on this episode because that might take too long, but I still will include the deck and the card listing, or the card in the description below. There we go. But yeah, keep that in mind. Hulking Metamorph technically is a 4 mana clone with that prototype, so there you go. Mocking Doppelganger is actually an interesting one because this can be kind of removal as well, so keep that in mind too. And then Gigantoplasm is just a better clone. It's just the exact same thing as clone, but it also can just become a massive creature if you need it to. And then, you know what? Let's just leave it at that. So we've got a decent amount of clones to pick from. You might even decide to add even more into the deck depending on what direction you take it. Again, if you have more creatures that have those ETBs that you want to use in views, great, do so. But, if this isn't a direction that you want to actually take it, don't go about it in that manner. Now, next up, since we are kind of going in this direction where we want to maybe go get those additional votes, to set ourselves up and then maybe have some clones that we can work with those, yeah, we kind of need to actually go get those additional vote cards to do so. Luckily, we are in black. We've got plenty of access to, plenty of access. We've got access to plenty of great tutors. And actually, I just kind of typed this out and tested it out first because I want to make sure this one works. But yeah, there you go. So we're going to do Oracle Tag Tutor. We're also going to do minus FO land, minus Oracle land, minus T land, because when you actually type in just Oracle Tag Tutor, it does include like land ramp, which I mean is kind of like a different kind of tutoring. Yeah, sure, that counts. Yeah, I just try to take out as much of that as I possibly can. So there you go. Like, yeah, see, Core Cartographer still showed up because it says planes instead of land. So there you go. So I'm not going to go in through and type planes, all those. But basically, I'm just looking for tutors. Now, all these tutors will not work for us. Obviously, like Trinket Mage goes against an artifact. That won't help us. What will help us, though, is like a Final Parting even. A Final Parting can help us out. Let's start a new quick list. Again, we talked about how we even have like Body Double, which can interact with the graveyard. Cool, great. This goes and gets 1 card for our graveyard, 1 for our hand. The big thing is, again, getting those additional votes out into play because that can just make a massive difference. So there you go. Just quickly scrolling through. There's got to be some other great ones in here too, I would hope. Yeah, Ring Sight can help us out. Obviously, I can basically go get any card in our deck as long as our commander is in play, or any other creature that might have the, color that we need, essentially. Coveted Prize. I mean, that one is 5. I guess I'm kind of... I kind of forgot that apparently Diabolic Tutor is going to be more than 50 cents. I was thinking I was going to see that one, but obviously it is more than 50 cents. Is less than $1 though. Razcast Right is a good one as well. Let's just throw Coveted Prize in there for right now as well. There are, again, it depends on the time of the year, it seems like, when tutors start to get more and more popular. Illicit Shipment, that could be one as well. We could have a creature we want to sacrifice to get a secondary one as well. There are going to be a decent amount of tutors that you can utilize for something like this. Make sure you're including in your searches, and I just looked this up beforehand too, but Perplex unfortunately is outside of our budget. Like Shred Memory is a great one as well, like those Transmute type cards. Unfortunately, we were looking for ones that would have 3 mana instead of 2 because the cards that we want to tutor for are at 3 mana. This should be a decent amount, and again, with the amount of card advantage that we can generate with a deck like this, we should also be able to just get to those cards too. But yeah, having those tutors, at least get to those cards or get to the tutors. Having those cards, and let's quickly look through just the second page a little bit. We should be able to make use out of, again, the right tutors that we need to get to the cards that we need to make sure that we are actually getting out, again, our game plan. And maybe the game plan changes, again, if we don't have cards within our budget that say, hey, I need to go get this exact card. Either you could expand your budget. Again, I think Dialogue Tutor is probably around 70 cents or so right now. add an extra 20 cents if you need to. If you want to break your rule, essentially, I do not break my rules on these things typically, but being able to go get, you know, okay, like I'll upgrade my budget just a little bit to make sure I can do this deck in the exact way that I want. Demonic Bargain could be a bit risky. I mean, like, the deck doesn't really focus 100% on those cards, so it could be a little risky to do that. You might lose both of your, you know, voting cards, so this could be one to consider and maybe test out in cut. Again, exile top 13 cards of your library. This is your library for a card, put your hand in the shuffle. It's very well cost again for 3 mana. Just keep in mind, again, you might lose out on the 2 pieces that you were hoping to get. That might not happen all that often, though, because, like, if you actually have both of them in the deck still, and you've got, you know, 80 cards, 85 cards or so left in your deck, chances of hitting one is not even that high. Chances of hitting both of them is very, very low. So, yeah, that could be a card that you consider as well. Let's just stick to that right now for those. Again, I'm not going to go through every single card right now, but yeah, having a decent amount of tutors could be good for this kind of a deck to make sure you get this kind of plan set up properly. Okay, so we've kind of talked about our engine with this deck. All right, we've got, you know, our commander, we've got our blink effects, we've got our ways to get even more value out of those blink effects and the double strike effects, etc., ways to essentially get more votes, ways to get to those things, get us more votes. Let's now talk about when things are going well, what do we want to be happening? Okay, we're making all of these artifacts, again, all these artifact tokens. How can we take advantage of that? Again, whether they're treasures, whether they're clues, what we can do, again, is maybe just search for, you know, how about when... Let's just go when clue. Okay, so when clue. All right, so we have these things, like maybe whenever you sacrifice clues, are there effects that can help us actually take advantage of that? There might not be all that many, again, within our budget, but we'll find out ways to, again, take advantage of when we're sacrificing clues specifically, treasure specifically, you know, and then also maybe just ways when we're sacrificing artifacts. So Eloise is a good one, right? So whenever you sacrifice a token, surveil 1. Also, whenever a creature dies, you control investigate. That's nice. We can take advantage of that as well. But whenever you sacrifice a token, surveil 1. So again, whether we're sacrificing our treasures or whether we're sacrificing our clues, we're going to be surveilling a ton. Again, just with 1 ETB from our commander, we get 2 treasures that we can just sacrifice right away if we want to, surveil 2. Dig down into your deck at the right cards that you need. And again, we do have like body double that can take advantage of our graveyard as well. When it comes to looking through these, again, I'm sorry, I'm going to look through them pretty quickly. It doesn't look like, I mean, when you sacrifice a clue, transform this. I don't really care too much about During Sleuth, I don't think. No, I don't care about that one. So basically, I don't think there's really any other ways that you really take advantage of sacrificing clues specifically, but again, within this budget, I should say. But again, it's always good to look. How about when treasure? So maybe when you sacrifice treasures, are there any effects that we can take advantage of in our own? Let's see. Enters the battlefield. Nope. Most of these are just actually making treasures, but ways to gain, you know, advantages from sacrificing them. It doesn't look like there are specifically ways for that, unless I'm missing something. And again, I am going quicker through this than I usually would. That being said, there is one that definitely comes to mind. When sacrifice, well, when sacrifice token. Let's just go with that, okay? Sacrifice token. That's maybe what I should have started off with. Sacrifice. Hopefully I'm spelling things right in this. When sacrifice token. So, Mirkwood Bats, an incredible card. Again, when you create or sacrifice a token, each opponent loses 1 life. This one, luckily, is still within the budget. So basically, again, when you create your tokens, which again, you're going to be doing, right? 5 tokens at least if you have all your opponents in play still, right? All your opponents still playing. 5 tokens at least when you blink your commander. All of a sudden, they just lost 5 life each. That's 15 life for just casting a simple, you know, 1 mana or 2 mana blink spell, essentially. And then also on top of that, you sacrifice some treasures, you sacrifice some clues, they're even further down. So yeah, there's plenty of ways to take advantage of that. Mirkwood Bats is a great one. And of course, we can talk about other ways to drain our opponents as well. I don't know if there's anything specifically like this one that, I mean, I guess when you create a token, you get counters on a target creature. That's nice. That could work well with your commander, I guess, because again, you could turn your commander into a 1-2 shot KO, but also if you're blanking your commander, you're getting rid of those. So that's not really all that great. Just looking quickly through these, I think that's probably gonna be the only one we're gonna get on this. Whenever you're sacrificing a token, whenever you're making a token, that's probably how you're gonna take advantage of it. Again, some might be more expensive, like, you know, those token doublers. Whenever opponent you control these battlefield counters on it, we're not gonna have counters on this as well. That being said, let's talk about sacrificing artifacts, because there are definitely some ways to take advantage of that. One specifically that I'm really hoping that we get advantages on, or that we get advantages on, that we actually have in these colors and in this. I mean, we have it in the colors, but I wonder if we have it in this. Oh wait, actually, when we sacrifice a graveyard, let's try that. When artifact graveyard. Let's see. There we go. Marionette Master. Okay, that card is going to be less than 51 cents. Thank goodness. So that is another great way to drain our opponents, right? By saying, okay, what artifact we control from the grave from the battlefield. Again, any of those tokens that we're making, we sacrifice them. Yes, they are tokens, but they still technically hit the graveyard. Drain an opponent essentially for 4 life. This can be absolutely brutal, devastating, take opponents out in absolutely no time with a deck like this. Age of the Iron Throne, another great one as well. Commander creatures you own have whenever an artifact creatures from the grave from the battlefield. Each opponent loses 1 life. Another great way to drain them. Again, just by getting, treasures out there and sacrifice them right away. Ways to really take advantage of that as well. And again, my apologies, I'm probably going to miss some here a little bit. There's another one that I'm thinking of right now, and it might be outside the budget. Unfortunately, again, I didn't go through and actually build this deck ahead of time. This is just on the fly right now. Where are you? Apostle. I think it's Apostle, right? CMC 1. It might be more than. Are you more than? Yep, Disciple of the Vault. There you go. Unfortunately, Disciple of the Vault, not within the, but it's a 50 cents technically, right? So I guess this is kind of a judgment call for you, and this doesn't show up on Scryfall, but hey, if you are like me and you're like, okay, you know what? I think that the World Champ Dex cards are actually legal in Commander, like most Commander players are fine with it, except for the Rules Committee apparently. Yeah, I'm fine with adding that to the deck as well, because again, that's within my own budget restrictions of 50 cents. I bought it for 50 cents. There you go. Again, you might not skirt the rules in that way, but I do. Again, Disciple of the Vault actually went up in price quite a bit. Regardless, yeah, finding ways to take advantage of sacrificing those clues, sacrificing artifacts, definitely a lot of ways you can do that. There is one more thing that does come to mind. Let's talk about ways to take advantage of actually, again, drawing those cards. Because again, we're going to be sacrificing clues, we're going to be drawing cards with them. So let's go back to USD. Oh, let's do it regular. There we go. 51. ID Esper. And then we're going to actually say, okay, when draw. And actually, this one's a bit tougher because this one actually has probably a lot of things happen. So yeah, Mold Drifter is something we'll come back to in a little bit. Psychosis Crawler. This is kind of what I'm thinking of though. Okay, so we can actually take advantage of, again, not just drawing cards throughout the game, but also drawing cards while we are sacrificing those clues. So yeah, Psychosis Crawler, a great way to take advantage of that. Unfortunately, I think Thought Reflection is no longer within this 51-cent budget or 50-cent less budget. So that'd be another one that I would consider because that is obviously a really good card with this. Thought Reflection would double up your card draw. So unfortunately, that is not, part of this this deck. But again, if you are willing to, actually expand that list just a little bit, let's see what Thought Reflection is right now. Thought Reflection. It is currently 86 cents. So it would be underneath, the $1 mark if you're willing to expand it to that. Again, take advantage of sacrificing those clues, gaining even more card advantage from that. Again, just thinking all the different iterations of what things you can take advantage of in this, like what kind of synergies you have. Just make sure you're thinking about that. One thing I will mention is that with this build, kind of while I'm doing this and adding these cards into these different categories, I would be putting them into the actual deck list, kind of seeing like, okay, like how many ramp spells do I have? How many, clone effects do I have? Just seeing like where my numbers are at while I'm doing this. While I'm doing this right now, I am not doing that just because I'm trying to speed through things and make sure that I'm getting this information to you. Now I'm just kind of blabbing on right now, but just making sure I'm making that note. Regardless, next up, let's talk about some ways, again, kind of just saw that Mold Drifter, right? So let's talk about some of those creatures that might have some ETBs that we can take advantage of. So how about when enter, and then let's just do, actually, let's put draw in there as well. And then we'll do creature, creature. So we can take advantage of some creatures that draw some cards when they enter the battlefield. So Mold Drifter can be obviously a great one. Again, if we just need to draw 2, we can evoke it out right away, and then we can just draw 2. Or we can get on the battlefield, draw 2, and then we've got plenty of blink effects. Again, we've got ways to actually blink our team, so keep that in mind as well. So yeah, Mold Drifter can be a great one to add. Whenever creature power 2 or less enters battlefield, our commander does not have 2 power. Wall of Omens, I mean, again, these ones that have just like 1 card draw, you might not want to consider. Again, like in a desperate situation, yeah, you can blink something. If your commander has been dealt with or whatnot, blink something out of your commander to dig down. Just drawing 1 card is probably not all that great. There are ones that draw 2, like Cloud Blazer, another great one. Cloud of Fairy is just a funny one, essentially. Again, if we were going to do kind of Feign Death type effects, Disciple of Bolus would be amazing. Sacrifice a creature to draw. That being said, probably not going to be doing those type of effects with this one. Liliana Standard Bearer and draw a number of creatures that die near control this turn. We're probably not going to be doing that as well. Again, if we had more kind of like a sacrifice kind of sacrifice kind of focus on this, we could. Sandstone Oracle can be a great one. Again, draw cards deal the difference that opponent has. So it can be just a massive, like, draw 7 cards potentially and just like refill your hand. Yes, you also have access to, again, those clues that you are making. So keep that in mind when it comes to your build. Again, you've got access to like temporary ramp with your commander once you get things going and also card draw. So keep that in mind. That being said, yeah, I mean, you also want some other ways to draw too. So don't just be kind of just completely, completely dependent on your commander doing that for you. Lord of Change can be a really big one as well. This one is decently expensive, but again, we've got a good amount of ramp in this stack. Enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards. So that can be even better, again, drawing an absurd amount of cards. So, and you don't want to do every single one of your cards potentially just in like, okay, I need every single one of mine to be creature, ETB, draw cards. Because that might not be the best, thought process essentially for it. That might not always work out for you. And also, you might be in trouble if you well, maybe have an opponent that plays some hate bear type effects and stops your ETBs. So you need ways to deal with them as well. And of course, we'll talk about some ways to deal with them too. So enter the battlefield. Yeah, I think that might be the last one that we're going to be considering right now for entering the battlefield and drawing a good amount of cards. Again, I'm going through this quite quickly. Actually, you know what? Let's do Inspired Sphinx as well. Draw cards equal to the number of opponents you have. Go through this quite quickly. I'd be going through, obviously, probably the entire, however many creatures this is, right? This is 169 cards. So I'm not going to do this out every single time. But again, just an example of, hey, you can get a lot of card advantage out of this. I guess Rumor Gatherer, let's do that as well. Whenever a creature is battlefield under your control, scry 1, second time, not scry 2, draw another card as well. So a repeatable draw effect for you as well. Yeah, just a lot of great things to consider. Again, talking about ways to dig down through your deck. When it comes to card advantage, typically you want like 10 or so in your deck. Again, this commander actually gives us card advantage too, so keep that in mind. But yeah, having different ways to play about that, it's a pretty good way to go about it. Okay, so in a similar way, we also probably want to have some ways to take advantage of, again, creatures that might have some ETBs for removal as well. Now, when it comes to removal, you've got, target removal, and you might also have, wrath removal. And typically, again, these are just average numbers, but yeah, depending on the deck, you probably want around, maybe 5 and 5, or just 10 in general. Essentially, when it comes to removal, you want to be able to interact with your opponents. And again, our commander does not do that. So again, some commanders do, our commander does not. Let's do Oracle Tag removal. And again, we want to maybe see if we can take advantage of some ETBs, because again, we have so many blink effects that we can be pretty flexible with what we can do with those blink effects. Oracle Tag removal. Let's do T creature, because again, we really only want to be able to blink creatures with this deck. So we've got like Plaguecraft or Fleshbag Marauder. Those are really nice. Again, especially for Aristocrat style decks, we don't really care about that because like we're probably gonna be sacrificing them themselves and not be able to utilize them with the blink effect again. Meteor Golem can be a good one though. Let's add a new list real quick. Meteor Golem can be a good one. ETB, destroy target non-land permanent. Cool, it can destroy a lot of things. Noxious Gearhulk, if you really care more about just getting rid of a creature and gaining some life, that's nice. I mean, again, you don't want to have too many expensive ways to do this. There really should be so many. I guess we might end up with a decent amount, but that's okay. Angel of the Ruins, another good one. This deals with two things. As I said that right, deals with it's 7 mana essentially, but still a very, very good effect. And again, we might not want to, again, just go really heavy into this. And kind of as I'm seeing this, of course, we've got Glorious Protector, which should be, I mean, I guess it's kind of like a delayed blink effect for our entire team. You could consider that kind of stuff, but maybe not. Reflector Mage is a pretty good one as well. This one doesn't actually destroy a creature, right? It just temporarily gets rid of it, and then they can't recast it. So this can wreak havoc, if I could talk, on your opponent's commanders, essentially, especially again when you can blink this multiple times. So keep that in mind. Just going to go pretty quickly through these. Again, some of which, I mean, Ashen Rider is incredible, but that costs a ton of mana. And yeah, I mean, again, like a Reclamation Sage in white, there is that one, but I think it's Lauren, not a budget-friendly card. So again, looking further through this, you'll be able to find even more kind of blink effects you probably take advantage of. That being said, I mean, actually, we can do really quick. Oracle Tag Wrath creature, because there are certain creatures out there. One that come to my mind that actually does Wrath. So there you go, like a Sunblast Angel. That can be a great one to just get into play. It could be a good threat, essentially, that, hey, you know what? I have this here. When my opponents actually decide to try to deal with my things or try to attack me, essentially, I can blink it. I can destroy your creature. So this can just be a stoppage, essentially, in the game where your opponent's like, I'm not going to swing because, hey, that'll just destroy me. When it comes to other kind of blink, there's not really too many blink effects that destroy things. Magister of Worth, not really great because it's going to destroy, I mean, your commander as well. You don't want to be destroying your commander if you can help it. Again, with this one, this is kind of flexible with that. So again, just finding different ways to, utilize, again, maybe your game plan. Part of your game plan is that blink strategy. Can I utilize that again for draw? Can I utilize that again for wrath removal effects? Make sure you're keeping that kind of stuff in mind. Okay, next up, let's just quickly round out this deck. And again, I'd have to make cuts. I have to make decisions. I'd probably look out and find other cards too that interact. But let's just round out this deck with, again, those other draw spells, those other removal spells as well to kind of fill in those gaps that we don't have. Again, with a strategy you want to add synergy to, absolutely you can use synergy, to, again, utilize those blink effects, to also, gain card advantage, to also take out your opponent's, creatures, non-creature permanents, whatever they are with the removal effects. You might not want to go all the way in, though, because you can get in really big trouble if an opponent maybe has something that stops those ETBs from happening, so keep that in mind as well. That being said, let's just start off with some, let's go card advantage first. And card advantage is what I would recommend putting in Oracle Tag, because it doesn't count like cards like hey, Factor Fiction, essentially, because Factor Fiction isn't card draw. If you just put Oracle Tag draw, it's not a draw. So yeah, keep that in mind. So here we go. So starting a quick list. So again, we do have a decent amount of mana generation. We do have, ways to, actually, ensure that we've got our mana fixed as well, like Sign of Blood, no big deal, obviously, just 2 mana. Read the Bones, a good one as well. We already have Muldrifter. Factor Fiction's a great card too. If we're looking for some like extra spells, we can do that as well. Yeah, I mean, we already have Midnight Clock, that's a great one as well. Just looking through these, and another way to do it too is if like, okay, so Payoff is a great one. Another way to do this is if you are looking for ones that can draw multiple cards, just put cards, essentially, full Oracle cards, and therefore you'll get that. If you're looking for maybe, say, for an X spell, one just popped up down there, just do mana, and then X. And actually, there's like the entire, you can find out like all these terms and whatnot. They've got like guides on this on Scryfall, so you can find that out as well. Mana X. So there we go. We can find out, okay, this is an X spell that we can utilize. Again, we're going to be able to generate a good amount of mana with a commander like this, especially when we're just saving up those treasures. So sure, Pull for Tomorrow is a great one. And again, I'd make cuts after this. I'm not just going to just add all these draw spells and then decide. Sphinx's Revelation can be a great one as well. 1 extra mana and be able to gain some life could be nice. Stroke of Genius, we're not really trying to like mill out an opponent, essentially, with this. I mean, I guess you technically could if you're going infinite, so that could be a direction that you go. So maybe we'll just add that one in there. We'll probably stop at that, though. Only so many X spells that we really want to use. Actually, Improvise could be great. There you go. Never mind. Universal Surveillance. Need to add that one in because, again, our artifacts can help us cast the spell. So there you go. That can be definitely another way, another avenue to go in. All right, next up, let's round out our Wraths and removal. So we'll just do quickly Oracle Tag Removal, Oracle Tag Wrath. Let's just do removal. And again, it's not perfect. Sometimes they don't catch all of them. You know, if you have one in mind that they didn't catch, or if you just want to type in like full Oracle text, you know, destroy, for Oracle text, exile. Those can be really effective ways to find removal as well. Generous Gift is now underneath 50 cents. Fantastic if it didn't surrender. That's a great one to consider. Despark is another great low the ground removal spell as well. Where else we got? Let's see. We've got Utter End Disenchant. We got Cathar Commando. We got a lot of really good ones in here as well. What am I trying to think about right now, though? Crush Contraband, I think, is one. See, again, sometimes, like, some of these are not caught in the Oracle text. So, like, make sure you just find that. Or at least Crush Contraband might be lower than I thought it was. But there you go. So, Crush Contraband, again, you don't just have to just stick to just the Oracle tag. It is a very helpful start. But also, if you have other ones in mind, go off of that. I mean, again, do full Oracle and then just find, like, you know, Destroy, find Exile, those kinds of things as well. But now let's do Oracle tag Wrath and then see what kind of Wraths we have access to. I mean, Austere Command is an amazing one, obviously. It is one that also, like, hey, we're going to have a lot of artifacts in play. That can actually be a good thing if we sacrifice those artifacts or destroy them all. Again, if we have, like, those ways to say, like, Marionette Master's in play. Cool, let's just destroy all the artifacts, drain our opponents out. So in a similar way, Cleansing Nova can be a good one as well, so keep that in mind. Time Wipe, that's actually okay. I mean, it's not going to be the best thing ever. Decree of Pain, it's a nice way to draw a lot of cards, quite expensive, but again, we do have a lot of draw. Divine Reckoning can be a very good one for us because we actually can just take out essentially everyone's creatures but one essentially for each player, and with that, again, we really just care about our commander for most circumstances, so we can actually say, you know what, let's just take everything out, keep our commander there. Necromantic Selection, kind of in a similar way. This actually will just basically get our commander back into play. So these are just ones I'm just going to throw out and consider right now. We already have Sunblast Angel. Again, when it comes to Wraths and removal, you know, usually 5 and 5 or, you know, some kind of change around that, but yeah, we'll just stick with this for now. Okay, and then one last one that I wanted to bring up as well. Again, another avenue to victory, potentially, I think I mentioned earlier, is, hey, okay, we're going to be making all of these artifact tokens, right? We talked about ways to maybe drain our opponents, you know, with those tokens, essentially, ways to take advantage of them being in play, maybe ways to take advantage of the draw that we get from the clues. That being said, one thing that we can take advantage of, though, is, again, actually turning those artifacts into creatures. So become creature artifact. Let's try that and see what pops up. I know there should be at least one that's coming to mind that's definitely in budget. There we go. Okay, so Rise and Shine. That is one that definitely came to my mind as another potential finisher. Target non-creature artifact you control becomes a 0/0 artifact. You get 4 counters on it, and if you overload it, all your creatures get that, essentially. So being able to turn all your creatures into 4/4s that can just swing out, and again, all your creatures, I should say, all of your clues and treasures into that. Yeah, you can, again, have upwards of, like, 40 treasures, or not so 40 treasures, but, yeah, like 40 clues, essentially, in play once you really get things going, and then all of a sudden, they're just 4/4s. You can swing out and take your opponents out. That's probably the main one that comes to mind. I mean, the Antiquities War can basically do the exact same thing, but it is delayed to do so, because you have to get to that third lore counter. The first two probably won't really help you out all that much, except for maybe get you a Mana Rock. Masterful Application would be a good one if we had another artifact in play that we'd want. Unfortunately, we probably can't guarantee that we are going to be able to get all of our, artifacts into something that we actually want them to. So that's probably what it's going to be. I mean, there's probably other ones out there, especially ones that are outside of budget as well. But again, just thinking about different avenues to victory can be very crucial. And again, build this deck, play it essentially, try things out, maybe see other cards you might want to add into it, make adjustments. Your deck's not going to be absolutely perfect when you're done building it. You need to iterate on it. And so that's kind of really how you kind of build the perfect deck for you. You, again, determine your budget and you iterate on that deck after, picking it up. So I hope this episode was helpful to you, again, on how to kind of build the perfect deck for you, within your own budget. So again, kind of just setting that, budget restriction right away, I found that has really helped me on Scryfall, just immediately saying, okay, like less than 51 cents. If I'm building a deck where I say, you know what, every single deck has to be less than 2/4 per card, there you go. So find your limitations on that, use the ID as well, Esper with this example, obviously. And then, using those Oracle tags, those can really help you. And again, sometimes using full Oracle if you need to kind of get a little more specific. If you're not seeing the right card that, you think about, okay, like again, Crush Contraband might not pop up for whatever reason on the removal, maybe it was just further down, but ways to just find those cards, essentially find different cards, find off the wall cards, make sure you're doing that. Also, again, another way that you can help is also with EDH Rec. That can help you as well when it comes to building decks. Now, I do think that some players out there might use EDH Rec too much as a crutch, and it can kind of go with groupthink, where maybe, like, again, you're like, okay, these decks are using this card at 50% of all the decks out there for this commander, therefore I have to use it. It might not work with the synergies that you're working with. Again, it might work completely differently. Now, that being said, after I'm done building on, the Scryfall, or, find those cards I need on Scryfall, as well as building it in, again, Moxfield or whatnot, then yeah, I might go look at EDH Dragon to see, okay, is there any synergies that I miss with this commander that I'm just completely missing? So that is a good way to go about that as well, and just kind of double check yourself. If you're newer to, building decks, maybe lean on Scryfall, definitely lean on Scryfall all the time, but lean on EDH Rec a bit more, but try to kind of wean yourself off of that, at least from what I found, to get a little more kind of creative, to get a little more out of the box, to not just get into this group think of like, okay, like they use this in 50%, I have to use it. To be able to find those synergies outside of that and that work really well with your deck and your build, yeah, I found that actually using Scryfall more often and EDH Rec, again, just as a late check at the end, it's still nice to have a late check at the end, can be a great way to go about building a deck. And obviously, the more that you build, the more experience you get and the better you get at it. So yeah, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are on all of this. I am going to have that deck list link in the description below. Again, sorry that I couldn't also include me cutting cards and showing. Maybe that'll be a separate episode where I talk about, cutting cards and how to go about cutting cards essentially from decks. But yeah, let me know if this was helpful. Let me know if you got any good, tips and tricks from it. Let me know your thoughts on it. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.